as you can probably already tell, like I'm super unprofessional as it is, you know, with everything I do. I'm just kind of like, you know,
Right.
just
I mean,
chilling.
same with me, man. I cuss like a sailor, so sorry
Yeah.
about it if that bothers you.
No, you saw me. No, I cuss too, man. Like my style,
But
like I think I briefly talked to you on the chat. Like, you know, my style is very much just like, you know, hey, we're just chilling, you know, having a good time, you know, having a
right.
conversation, and yeah, you know, like nothing pro about me at all. So, so
Yeah,
yeah.
actually, I think it would be really cool though if because I was looking around, I was trying to find something that like where we could all connect together, like kind of like through this system right here, and not have audio issues, obviously. But like try to get Trevor Seven, Mad Cat Spear, GM, because I know that he's pretty popular right now too. Everybody wants to talk to GM. Which I've spoke to his I guess it's like secretaries or something. It's through through email or whatever. I was trying to talk to them, see if I can get a hold of him about a few things I had questions about. But no, like I said, I've been invested in psychokinetics, seeing without your eyes and stuff like that for quite a long time now. I think that I think there's multiple pathways that you can take to really try to progress with psychokinetics. I don't think it's just the energy pathway that we're all kind of pretty familiar with. Like I see you got John Chang behind you. So Mopai and stuff of that nature is what you're familiar with, I imagine. Um, but I think that there's some other ways to do psychokinetics that I've been finding recently that I think is maybe pretty valuable. It actually came about whenever I was learning about the law of attraction and stuff of that nature. Well, you know how, and GM mentions this too. So if I sound scattered, that's just my brain. I'll go all over the place, so I apologize for that. But you know, GM's talked about the lower mind and the higher mind, correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he did clear it up in one of the videos where he was like, well, he doesn't mean that there's two separate minds. What he means, I think, is what a lot of these manifestation teachers and spiritual gurus and stuff that we see now, what they talk about, this like higher mind and lower mind as if it's like dualistic. So basically, one thing I've been using recently to move objects and to connect with objects is like completely removing all logical thinking whenever I go to practice. And I notice that I connect with the object instantaneously because you're not concerned about how you're trying to move it. If you have enough energy to be able to move it, you know, am I in the right mindset? Like, it's almost like what Yoda says when he says, do or do not, there is no try. You know what I'm saying? It's like about getting in that mindset where you're just like, you're absorbed by the intention itself and the task at hand to fully connect with the object. And you're not thinking about how you're going to move it and how your energy is going to move it. You're working with it like directly. And I find
What do
that to be
you
pretty
what do
useful.
you move? What
Uh,
type of objects do you
so I've moved like paper from a distance. I don't wave my hand, but I do have a technique that I'm actually going to talk about that I think is useful. I've moved paper. I've moved side wheels under containers. I used to have this hat where I took this. It was like a pendulum. I taped it to the hat, and I could swing it with my eyes. Basically, like the energy that I was projecting from my eyes was connecting with the object, and I could swing it. And there was a magnetic feeling. In fact, I started with the pendulum, and it was because of Sifu Amanjani. It was a very old video. He was talking about like one of the ways to be able to start doing telekinetics was holding it in your hands and trying to will it to go in certain directions. Well, that's how I started. And from there, I realized that you can emit this energy, this magnetic type of energy from many parts of your body, and not just your hands. You can emit it from your eyes. You know, you can emit it from a lot of sources. It's not just one place. You know what I'm saying? But for years I got hung up on trying to learn things like the microcosmic orbit, how to have enough chi and stuff like that to move these things. Well, one thing I realized is that you'll never have enough chi. Personally, I don't believe that. You'll never have enough chi unless you accept that you have enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to just believe that you can do it where you're currently at, especially if you ain't got a teacher to show you energy work or how to do these things properly. Because I encountered a lot of blockages from breath meditation. I encountered them in my heart, my head. In
Could
fact,
you
I'd even get them
elaborate
in my
on
lower
that a little
dantian
bit?
area.
By the way, Brock, I don't know if you know this or not, but we're already recording and we didn't even get to do like a proper, introduction for you. So, like, not that we're starting over, but do you want to like maybe introduce yourself a little bit? Because you have pretty much no social media presence whatsoever and things like that. So we should probably
Right.
explain that to the audience first. And
I got you.
yeah, so let me start. But so yeah, just tell me a little bit about yourself, like just very briefly, like what do you do for a living, where do you live, things like that.
So like I said, I live in Illinois, middle of nowhere. There ain't a whole lot going on around me. I work at an auto part shop. I currently make my own clothes. Uh, and that's predominantly it right now. I mean, I got a pretty small social group. The only person I have around me that's kind of interested in this kind of thing is my roommate, who I've had for years. He was big invested into ceremonial magic for years. So evocation, invocation, working with like the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Goetia, stuff of that nature.
That's
So
interesting. That's something I'm not too familiar with. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
yeah. So first of all, his room looked like Hot Topic or some shit. uh, but yeah, he was invested in working with entities for a very long time. So he was invested in like dark arts, I suppose, is what you would say. Um, and he liked the idea of working with familiars and having thralls. In essence, was the idea. Um, but it's all about just like entity communication. That's the idea behind it, and that was what his goal was to communicate with other things. And he had some successes, a lot of failures. In fact, since I do have you on social media, I can send you after this video a link. Their house was on TV on America's Most Haunting or something like that on A&E, and he I can't necessarily say it was fully him that caused the activity in his house, but it certainly didn't help. And he experienced, and his family experienced, a lot of traumatic experiences regarding the paranormal. There was a girl, her name was Raven, a friend of ours, playing with the Ouija board. She got scratched pretty bad. We've heard growling, crying in the house. I've been friends with this family for over a decade at this point, and I had experiences at my family home whenever I was living there when I was younger. Their house is kind of fine now. Their family home is kind of okay now because they've had it exorcised by multiple different people. They've had shamans come through. They've had uh, not priests, but holistic individuals to come through and cleanse the house and everything. But yeah, a lot of pretty heavy stuff went on in that house. Like I said, I started having experiences from that house probably about 4 or 5 years of knowing them. I started having experiences at their house and at my house. Uh, Things like stomping, going through the house at nighttime, that you would feel tremor throughout the
And sorry to
house.
cut you off. Sorry to cut you off, but how long did you live with this individual?
So I'm currently living with him now.
Oh, you're living with him now. I want to interview
Right,
him.
right, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. He don't practice ceremonial magic much anymore. But he still has everything if he still wanted to. I think for him, it was just about getting older, and he just kind of stepped out of the field. But out of anybody I've met, he was certainly one of the heavy hitters that I've experienced firsthand with these kind of things. So I've always been more interested in energetic work, meditation, and inner development, I guess you
So you
could
don't
say.
you don't practice that sort of stuff at all. Then
No.
can you? Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. No.
I'm personally intrigued. Whenever writes the stories, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I wish I had these experiences, but and I'm very intrigued for to listen to these types of stories. But I personally never had those types of experiences a whole lot. So yeah, very fascinating indeed. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in spirituality and how you learned this stuff to begin with?
Uh, man, how did I get into it? That's a very good question. It's been probably well over a decade at this point of interest. I think whenever I first got into it, I was researching Kundalini. I may have stumbled across it online, and I got very invested in the idea of trying to awaken this dormant energy that supposedly lay dormant in the body. And I got very obsessed with it, very, very obsessed with it. The idea of it just working with chakras and different things of that sort was kind of how I got into it. I think I'm 26 now, and I was probably 15 or 16 when I first got interested in these kind of things. Um, but that was I think that's where it started all, was with that kind of stuff, was with Indian magic, Kundalini, Tantra, stuff of that nature. I think was where it started. Um, but then it wasn't long after I got invested in this field where I stumbled across psychokinetics. And a part of me always knew that it was entirely possible, which GM talks about a little bit because he also has dived into quantum mechanics quite a bit. And he knows that there is some scientific evidence to back these kind of anomalies up. And yeah, I mean, it's true. You know what? Honestly, I think that if you ever do any research on Robert Monroe, he was the individual. He owned a radio station, and he started having astral projection experiences. So when he started it's called the Monroe Institute. You may have heard about it before. It's an institute all about astral projection, many things here in the States. But
Yeah,
he,
I interview scientists from Monroe Institute once. So yeah.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. Uh, so he's talked about how like certain brain states can make you aware of this connection that we have within our external reality. But where we're at currently right now in our beta waking state, we see ourselves as separate. And many spiritual teachers talk about that idea about how we are connected with everything surrounding us, which is very true. It's just where we're currently at in our waking state, it's not something we'd normally see. You know what I'm saying? Um, but in terms of like being able to like connect with objects, one of the things that I think, like I said, is probably the most important. It's not about having enough energy. That's important. I think being able to feel energy and work with energy is very important. But I don't think that's the only way of being able to communicate with these objects or communicate with really anything like this. I think it's about turning off your logical mind. A big part of that, I think, is whenever they say the lower mind and the higher mind, if you think we've always, at least when I grew up, as I've been growing up, you got the left brain and the right brain. The left brain is your reasoning, logic, all of that nature. Then you have your right brain, which is your creative. It's your imagination, stuff of that nature, your artistic side. Well, I think it's very important to turn off the left brain when engaging in these kind of activities, because I don't think logic is going to do anything for you except hinder you whenever you're practicing these kind of arts. You know what I'm saying? Uh, And I have read in some military documents where there were military officials discussing these topics uh, pretty significantly. And one of the things that I remember reading in one of the passages in one of these documents is said that, much like what I just said there, analyzing these things with logic is not going to get you anywhere, because from what we know, no one knows what this energy is that moves it. You can call it psi, you can call it chi, you can call it mana, ki, prana, whatever you want to call it, but no one really knows. You know what I'm saying? So since no one really knows what it is that does it, logic's not going to really do much for you. Now, one of the other weird things too that I've kind of been encountering with trying to communicate with objects psychokinetically is when it comes to an object that I've never worked with before, I feel like in the pit of my stomach this fear that's like holding me back. I don't know what it is, but it comes up that whenever I'm working with objects I've never worked with before that's like heavier. And I think it could be many things, anxiety, it could be really anything, but a part of me wonders if like it's like a defense mechanism, like your brain is afraid of doing this because it might, I don't know, I couldn't really tell you. It's just this weird feeling that comes up when I work with certain objects that are heavier. It's like my body kind of like feels like it's rejecting it. The connection is what I mean.
How
But
how how much do you train currently right now? Psi abilities, if you will.
uh honestly, just recently I got back into it. I fell out of it for a very long time. Um the farthest so the most the biggest reaction I ever had from an object that I was working with was when I was probably 17, 18. Around that time I was very obsessed with this, and to an unhealthy degree too. And basically what it was, so since I'm really comfortable with my buddy who was big into ceremonial magic, I had him hold up this I had it on a chain. It was like a garage door locker or whatever. I had it hanging and suspended from a chain, and he was holding it in his hands, and I used the energy that I was projecting from my eyes to connect with the object that he was holding in his hands. And I would move my head and it would gyrate or swing, or not gyrate, swing very intensely. And it was funny because like I was fairly close to him and I was just swinging my head and it's following my eyes in this like arcing motion, and he was like taken back by it. And I was just like, you know, it was crazy. And I'll tell you, and this ain't probably the best thing, you'd be surprised how strong I was whenever I was drunk. Weirdly
When you were
enough,
drunk?
yeah, when I was drunk.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think really what that had to do was, you know what it is, like when you're drunk, you can have like that confidence that you might not have whenever you're just
Well, I'm
normal.
I'm not much of a drinker, so I wouldn't. I don't really know, but
I haven't touched
I'll
alcohol in
take
two
your word
years,
for
buddy,
it.
so no worries. I'm right there with you. I don't drink anymore either. But yeah. So I think that was what it was. It was like confidence mixed with like how comfortable I was with this friend. And because of that, and also knowing that he believed in these things, I think really helped a lot too. Because, I know for GM, he's talked about how he could do this in front of people and it not make a difference in who he does it in front of. But for me, I have a lot of anxiety. So being with the right people is very important that I show these things to, because not everybody's going to believe them. And I think it is important to be with the right setting and the right kind of people for these things to happen as easily as you like them to. Really, like I have to be with those kind of people. I don't show anybody this outside of my roommate. I showed my mom when I used to live with my mom at my mom's house. I did show her, like I moved a couple things for her, but I stopped that altogether, and then I took it entirely private, where I just worked on it myself. But yeah, that's kind of what I did.
Gotcha. Brock, you're a really, really good talker. To like I had mentioned in the beginning, Brock doesn't really have like aside from his Facebook page where we initially communicated and things like that. He doesn't really have like a social media presence and things like that. But as I'm getting to know you right now, I mean, this is the first time I spoke to you and stuff like that. I mean, we literally met like 22 minutes ago or whatever. I mean, like, do you think about maybe perhaps like becoming public, like, in the future, like, since you're doing this interview with me? I mean, does that, yeah, would you possibly entertain that idea?
I mean, I think me and you were both in the same telekinetic group. I'm not like the most social, I suppose. I live in a very small town, and I have had the same group of friends I've had for years. I'm very kind of closed off in a lot of ways. In fact, I didn't used to be when I was younger. It's weird. When I got into this kind of stuff, though, I became more closed off and way more reserved. But which I think is kind of a natural occurrence, personally. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one of the things. Okay, so one of the issues that I encounter with telekinetics, and I think you've probably experienced it too, because I remember seeing these videos where you were with and Johnny, and you were going through that recovery period because it was making you sick. The practices were making you feel like you were going to have a heart attack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Am I talking about? Yeah, right. And I'm sorry if that was if I'm disclosing things that you weren't want to talk about.
No, it's fine. I definitely went through that, and it wasn't the most pleasant experience to go through,
right.
like those bad side effects, if you will. So yeah.
Right. So, okay, the problem that I have currently right now is with my breath meditation practices. I've hit blockages, and for some people, I think these blockages that people might encounter are a metaphorical meaning. They're hitting a block within themselves, much like how an artist hits a creative block. I've hit physical blockages. So that's the problem that I'm currently encountering right now, which I also know that the energy methods, which involving breath and stuff like that, is not the only way to do these things. The mind can also do a lot of things alone without having to work on the breath. So I currently have some attachments that are inhibiting my progress, which make me less inclined to always want to do these things, because sometimes when I practice them, they can make me feel sick. And that's the thing I don't like about it.
Sorry, Brock. Can you give me 1 second? I gotta do something real quick. I apologize.
There you go. Yeah, no worries.
Can I share something with you, Brock? The weirdest thing just happened. Like, someone was knocking on my door, but I went out there and there was no one there, no car, nothing. That was the weirdest thing ever. Maybe it's paranormal. Who knows? Maybe it was a ghost. I don't know. I don't get freaked out by that stuff too much, but yeah,
the ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah. Where were we? Oh yeah. So could you tell me a little bit about your the breath work, the type of breath work, and if you don't mind, maybe you can demonstrate it for the people so they can kind of like see what exactly you do and things like that.
So it's nothing fancy. In fact, it's just normal deep breathing. It's through the nose, out the nose. I try to make sure the breath reaches the stomach. That's the most important thing. But it's literally just belly breathing. That's the only kind of breath meditation that I do, and that's simple. I don't even know if I have to do any showcase or visuals for that. It's just you breathe in and breathe out, but in a deeper and longer inhale and exhale. You want to extend your inhales and your exhales. That's all I do personally. But I know there's plenty of different types of breathing meditations that you can do that supposedly can help with these things. You got box breathing, which is inhale for 4 seconds, hold, exhale, for hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds, and then repeat the cycle. That's supposedly pretty good for you to be able to get your energy going. Honestly, though, like with connecting with objects, like I said, if you can feel energy in your hands, you can use that as your medium to be able to connect to the objects. You don't have to do like the microcosmic orbit and stuff like that. I think for things like the microcosmic orbit, breath work, and stuff of that nature is good. If like I think it's more powerful than really anything that I have, but I don't know how to do the microcosmic orbit. I think that's something that you have to be taught because you're working with energy gates that if you try to tamper with them while you're alone and you don't have a teacher, it could be fairly dangerous. Personally, that's just my opinion. I think that you can fry your nervous system from these practices. So I think that a teacher is necessary for stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
But really,
What?
like, if you want to
Why
feel,
did you?
what's that?
Oh, why did you choose that particular breath method as your primary, breathing technique, if we will? Like, what about that uh, breathing technique resonates with you, perhaps?
It feels good. I think that's
Just feels good.
important. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important because you have to think like if something feels good, that's more important than any kind of fancy technique that you can ever encounter. It has to
Mhm.
feel good. It has to like I think honestly the best way for anybody to learn ESP, extrasensory perception, and learning any of these things is to dive into the healing practices because that's where a lot of our issues we encounter, at least for me, where I have energy blockages that I feel physically in some areas of my body. It's because you have to have the healing components to go with it. You can't go like all the way into wanting to, do all these cool things like moving objects or seeing with your eyes closed or whatever it may be with energy. You really have to focus on the healing components. That's it'll take you further than trying to burn yourself out, projecting all of your energy onto these objects, and you don't have the means to be able to replenish yourself. Because that's one thing I've done a lot too, which can make you sick. Is if you project too much, it can give you heart issues. It can make you feel sick. And another thing too is like the cleaner your energy is, the healthier you are, the stronger your energy is going to be. I mean, that's to me, that's logical. But yeah, I don't do anything fancy. If you want to feel energy in between your palms, a really easy thing you do is make a psi ball like everybody else does. That seems to be a pretty common one. Uh, a practice that I do to be able to feel the energy in my hands isn't just making the ball and trying to feel it, using motion. So I'll do circular movements, and you can start to feel the magnetic connection between both the palms by doing that. Now, how I see it and how I've seen other practitioners do it too, they whenever you go to pull an object, you want to pull it from your palm, but if you want to project, you want to use the points on your fingertips. That's I think that's pretty accurate. That's how I felt the connections. But really, it's just like doing that kind of motion a lot. That'll get your hands lit up like really well. You'll start to feel the emanations very strongly. Um, if you want to learn how to feel energy or project energy with your eyes, you can do what I did, where I took like a hat, I took some tape, and I took a pendulum, hung it in front of my eyes, and just made sure my head was stationary, and I would just use my eyes, and you'll feel it. I mean, a buddy of mine that I did this to whenever I was younger, I had him put it on or whatever, and he wasn't even invested in this stuff like that, and he was able to swing the object very quickly, and he said he could feel the magnetic connection between the object and his eyes immediately. One of the other things too is, which this can be kind of can hit your ego a little bit. So psychokinetic energy can stick to an object. All right. And I remember when I was younger, when I was big into these things, more so than I am now, honestly. I still love the field. I still research it like every day. But I would notice that whenever I would project onto an object and I was getting really good momentum and motion out of it, that the girl, I remember I was talking with this girl, she was able to connect with the object immediately. And she was able to move it telekinetically. But I noticed that she wasn't able to do that, though, like from a fresh start where I didn't do any kind of connection to it. So psychokinetic energy, psi, or whatever you want to call it, can linger on the object, which can allow anybody to interact with it. And which is interesting, the military has these things called it's a field of study they call psychotronics. So it's about creating these devices that you can use that amplify your thoughts into being able to manipulate the reality around you. There's a really good book on these kind of topics. It's called The Little Black Box. And what this book is all about is creating your own little psychotronic device that you can use to be able to do a lot of things. I mean, these devices are almost like, they have limitations, of course. But if you ever seen the movie Click by Adam Sandler, it's like an all-in-one type of device. And the military has used them. In the 50s, there was actually oh man, what was it? It was like a big old event they had in the 50s. I remember reading about it recently, where they were talking about openly about psychotronics. And, it's really weird because a lot of the stuff that, that we talk about in these groups and stuff like that, they've been talked about for years. And they have already mastered these sciences, but they don't let the public know. But, you've probably heard about like Russia and their advances in the psychic field and stuff like that, which I'm sure you have, because in our group we have some kids in there that I think are Russian, and they're usually pretty good because over there it's talked about a lot more. In other countries, talked about a lot more than here it is in the U.S. We're very limited when it comes to this kind of information. Like there was a guy in Russia that won like a peace prize, or not peace prize, some sort of prize or something like that, because he got like over 50 people in one room to be able to move an object, and he got like some big prize for it. I forget what it was, but yeah, it's a lot more talked about and accepted in other countries. We just don't hear about it though, because we don't know their language, we don't have the media that they have, and we don't live over there. So yeah, these things are very common. They're a lot more common than the everyday norms makes you think. And we're able to do a lot more than we've been led to believe. 100%.
Yeah,
I think
Brock. I'm I didn't know what to expect from this quote unquote interview. I didn't even know what we were gonna do. Like we were just like, okay, maybe we're just gonna exchange knowledge and like be done in 5 minutes and stuff like that. I'm pretty impressed by you. I'm not gonna lie. You're sharing a lot of great information, man. And like, I'm not even asking you questions. You're just sharing all these things on your own. I'm loving it. And that's, and like normally, I haven't done this work in a long time. I'm definitely rusty when it comes to talking or asking questions and things like that. And you're just talking, so it's great, man. Just keep it going. Whatever you want to share, just yeah. I mean, whatever you want to share, just keep going, brother.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I mean, I love this field.
Some of the things that you shared, like I've genuinely never even, heard before. So
Yeah. Okay. So basically, like, okay. So I'll tell you this: telekinetics is important in many ways, and it's not just about moving objects. So, like for me, I look at the practical uses of the things that I learned from telekinetics that I use in other parts and other ways of my life. So, like developing your belief systems for these things. The belief systems, like when you are able to move an object and you moved it, that is like an indicator to let you know that you can use that same ability, not in the same way, but that same kind of belief. You develop this belief in yourself that you can do more than you've led yourself to believe, or other people may have led you to believe. You can make changes in your life because you affect a lot more than you thought you did. So when you realize that, you can drastically change your life in many ways with that. It's a very powerful thing, and this world wants to tear that down from you. They don't want you to believe in yourself. They either want, I don't know if you're religious, I apologize, you are, but they either want you to believe in some
Not at
God that's
all.
going to come
Not even
save
a
you.
little bit.
they they want you to believe in that some God is going to come save you, which is not going to happen. I'm sorry to say, I don't personally believe anybody's going to come save us. We're in our own shit. We caused this, and we're going to have to deal with it. No God's going to come save you. The government wants you dependent. They want you dependent on them. So that's why they do all this stuff to do us, because they want us dependent on them. They don't want you to have your own free will. They don't want you to be empowered.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Dude, Brock, so sorry to cut you off. You're sharing so much good stuff. Do you want to go live? Do you want like I'll stop this recording. Do you want to go live on Facebook?
maybe the next chat. This is fine right now. I'm already in a flow.
This is fine right now. No.
Yeah.
I apologize for cutting you off, but like, I mean this. I genuinely mean this. Like, I'm impressed by you. Like, I didn't know what to expect from you. I was just like, okay, who's this guy? Like, I was just like,
Right.
okay, sure. Like, I'll just, just kind of, see what happens. But man, like,
Right.
I'm loving everything you're sharing. You're extremely knowledgeable. I want to go for like 24 more minutes. Like, do you mind if I kind of, like brainstorm like what I want to ask you, if you don't mind, just real
Yeah.
quick? Because
Yeah, go for it, bro.
You're extremely knowledgeable, and like I want to make it so it's like, hey, I'm asking you questions and like you answer type of thing, in the limited time we got. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, you're good, bro. Do your thing.
Okay, yeah. All right. So so we talked enough about telekinesis. Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your Mindsight experiences.
Okay. I'll give you a secret. Do you know what the word shaman means?
No, I don't. Please tell me, what does the word shaman mean?
So I will tell you that there's a lot of messages that hide within words. Okay. So the word shaman means man who can see in the dark. That's the actual definition of the word shaman. So whether or not this ability of being able to see with your eyes, without your eyes, is something that we may have, it may be a relic of one of our past lives, or something from when we were fighting to survive in the forest. You know what I'm saying? Some evolutionary thing that we were able to still hold on to. I can't say for certain, but I can tell you that within certain shamanistic practices, they do this thing where they call it eating the air, or air eating, or it's basically chi eating. It has to do with the lower dantian. So, and Johnny has talked about this. He's talked about this a little bit with the etheric double. So the idea is you build up the chi in your lower dantian, or you just build up chi in your body in general. I think the chi has a lot to do with how well you can see with your eyes closed. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the more energy and chi that you have built up is going to allow you to see clearer. But I can't say for certain if that's entirely true, because one of the practices that I got very interested in, and it's more so because like it feels good, it feels sometimes better than breath meditation. It's staring into the void, which in some magic practices or some magical circles, this is a part of their practice. Uh, all it is like wearing, if you have a mindfold mask, I don't know if you do, but a mindfold mask is like, it looks like a sleep mask. Put it over your eyes and it blocks out all light completely. And the idea is, well, for me, what I use it for is for staring into it with my eyes open. And it's really about like getting away from yourself. It's about letting go of everything, because when you're staring into the void is limitless. And I noticed whenever I would practice those things that I would start to have sight. Spending enough time in the darkness, I think alone, without even trying to do any energy practices, might be enough to be able to see. But I'll give you the things that I have seen, because the sight is not perfectly clear, and it does take a lot of work to be able to start visually seeing while you're in the dark. So the first things that I noticed after a while of meditating in the pitch black was when I would wave my hands in front of my face with the mask on in a pitch black room, actually pitch black house. I would start to see like tracers. Like when I would move my hands, I would see like black outlines or white outlines. It would sometimes vary, but I would certainly be seeing something. And I could do it with my eyes closed too, because I obviously take these things as far as I can to know what I can and can't do. So I put like a shirt over my head and other things over my face to make sure I was not seeing anything remotely from my physical eyes. And that was how I started. I was just waving my hands in front of my face. And in fact, if anybody who does watch this, you can find these kids on YouTube. They have school systems where they all play like on playgrounds and stuff like that with these masks on. They'll be throwing balls back and forth to each other, you know, doing obstacle courses and everything like that. It probably has to do with the Ajna chakra, the third eye chakra. I imagine that has something to do with it. I have seen something pretty weird whenever I was able to when I had sight. I could see from the front of my forehead what looked to be like tentacles or this like black mass of something. If you've heard of, if any of you guys who ever watches play Skyrim, you know Chimera Moraz in his realm. It's like the eye with all the tentacles or whatever. Well, it almost looked like tendrils or something like that coming out from the top of my forehead in like my peripheral, and that was pretty strange to say the least, because I was physically seeing these things. One thing I also see as well fairly often, if I meditate in like a low light room, I can see smoke everywhere, which is another weird experience. Yeah, smoke. It looks like it'll come off your fingertips. It's probably chi. Most likely, it's probably chi. But it comes off the fingertips. You can see it around the room, everywhere, like in a very low light room. Like if I meditate with like just a little bit of moonlight coming through, I can see it very strongly in some places. What else have I seen? This was weird. I'll tell you, this is actually kind of cool. So if you do practice these things and you start to be able to see some things like your hands and other things like that. I remember one night whenever I was home alone and I was meditating and I was working on my Mindsight, what I was using at the time was like colored pieces of paper. Basically what I did was I seen from Sean something. He has this book. He's talked about this subject a little bit too. He's on YouTube. He's done meditation for years. Sean Mc something. I can't think of his name off the top. But in one of his videos, he talked about an easy way to be able to do some of these like Mindsight activities. So basically, you get like 5 or 6 different pieces of cardboard paper that are different colored. And what you do is you take like a glue stick and you write on the colored piece of paper what, like say it was a red piece of paper, you put an R. And then instead of having to take the mask off each time to make sure you have the right color, or if you've done it right, you feel what the letter feels like. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I did. I was feeling, okay, this is an R. I got this one right. This was green. This was a G. I got this one wrong. You know what I'm saying? Well, I had something pretty wild happen one of the nights I was practicing with this. I remember I was practicing for about an hour, and without thinking, I had to take a piss. So I got up and I went to my bedroom door, which was shut at the time, and all the lights and everything in the house was off, and I never took my mask off. Without thinking, I saw my door and I saw my handle and just reached for it and opened it. And I was just like taken back. I'm like, whoa, I just seen that. You know what I'm saying? Like I just seen my door handle on my door. And it was weird because it was like I wasn't trying to see anything. You know what I'm saying? And I think a part of that because I wasn't trying and I was just like moving in some sort of like autonomic way. It was just like automatic that I was able to see immediately. So that was pretty strange, to say the least. That was one of the coolest experiences I think I had with Mindsight, for sure. And it was like completely unintentional.
Gotcha. Brock, what is your goal? What is your ultimate goal in this pursuit of spirituality? Like, do you want to just become like a Jedi or something? Do you want to, be able to levitate or something like that? Or do you have something much more like, philosophical, perhaps? Like, do you want to be able to like, pursue enlightenment? Do you want to like make the world a better place? Like, what is your ultimate goal in this pursuit of spirituality?
For people to realize that the limitations that society and themselves uh, project onto you are not real. To remove those limitations from yourself, I think that it's probably more of a philosophical standpoint. For people to realize that they're a lot more powerful than they may think they are. So it isn't really an end goal of being able to move a certain object or being perceived in a certain way. It's more so to let people know that like you can do a lot more and like hone your power, hone who you are, be the best you can be, you know, and it's possible you only have one life on this planet. Depending on your perspective, we might have many, but don't hold yourself back because of fear of these kind of topics. Like experience everything, you know, and this is just one other form of this kind of experience that we're all living. Try it out. If you like it, cool, you know, and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You realize, wow, this reality is a lot weirder than I thought. And yeah, I mean that's really just what it is. It's becoming the best you. I think is really the idea, and being able to show and tell other people, whether or not it's with telekinetics. But I feel like I've had enough time reflecting over this last decade to know that we're a lot stronger than we've been led to believe. And I think we're
Gotcha.
slowly getting there as a people to a certain degree. But
Gotcha. Um, what is a typical day in the life of Brock looks like?
Photoshop. I work, come home, and design clothes. That's
Yeah. What
what it
what
is
type
right
of what
now.
type of clothing brand are you selling?
The clothing brand, I can send you some of the designs I've got finished recently. The clothing brand is called Veiled Secrets. Veiled Secrets Apparel.
That sounds
It's
cool. Like, is that something spiritually related or?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it is.
It's
That's
so
that's cool. That's awesome. That's
yeah,
so cool. I'll have to, dude. Since you came on, like I seriously freaking loved this interview. I almost wish I would have done like a proper intro and things like that. I was just kind of like, I don't know I don't even know who this guy is. Just But dude, I will. Dude, let me know when it's done. I would be more than happy to advertise it. Well, I'll definitely put it on the links. So I'd be more than happy to.
yeah, yeah. I'd appreciate that, man. Uh, I wish I had some. I gave my mom one of the best samples that I had from one of my designs, so I don't have that one. Otherwise, I'd show you that one live right now. But it's this really cool album that I made. Um, but yeah, I got a few designs up right now that I'm pretty proud of that I've been putting a lot of effort into, and not gonna lie, they should have already been launched. I'm using Etsy as my platform to launch
Oh,
these
Etsy's
things
right.
because I figure why not go where the traffic's at. Uh, there's I think one of the things that it's talked about a lot within the spiritual community is, or they might fear things like money and stuff of that nature.
Hmm.
Money can be is a very beneficial thing, but for a lot of people, it's a negative conversation,
Yeah, yeah.
especially
I know. Yeah, I know what that's like. Yeah.
right, especially now because economically we're in a horrible state with the cost of everything and all of that.
Yeah.
So for me, I've found ways to counter that I feel like I have enough belief in myself to be able to change my financial situation. And a big part of it is to think about the people that I have around me and how I can change their lives with money. And it's not about greed. I don't give it. I'm gonna be honest. I'll be frank. I don't give a shit about hoarding a bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's not my goal. It's more so just being like, here, take this. If this makes your life better, fantastic. I'm just happy to help. You know what I'm saying? And whether that is through wisdom that I've gained over the years from these esoteric subjects, or whether it's just experience I've had from life, emotional intelligence, it's all about just giving it away, because I can't take this shit with me when I die. So what do I care? You know what I'm saying? I'll just give it to somebody else because it makes their life easier and better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a lot to make me happy, but I know that currently life's hard for everybody. And if I have the intelligence and the means to be able to change that, I'm going to do it. I don't need anything back. Give it to them and let them do with what they want with it. I don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Brock, so do you have a goal in mind, like, on how big you want to make this Etsy shop and things like that? Or you just kind of like, I'm just going to throw it out there, see what happens. Like,
well, I mean, I got some, I guess you could say, like, financial goals, what I would like to make monthly. To be able to leave my 9 to 5 is pretty important. I think that's one of the biggest things, because before I got into the job that I'm at now, I worked in cell phone sales. So I worked with both AT&T and Verizon, and I was a sales representative for years for both of those companies. And I've seen a lot of the darker side of these companies.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that could be a whole other video. If you would like me to give you some information in regards to what these companies do, that could be an entirely different video and everything. I'd be totally down with that. But but goal-wise, right now, I mean, getting my first sale, that's the most important thing. Because
so is the store up yet or not?
The store is up, but all of the products that I currently have on the store right now, they're drafted. They're not published yet because I'm still ironing a few things out.
Gotcha.
But they are pretty much ready to go. I got a couple more samples that I'm getting into the mail right now that I'm going to check on to make sure they're up to my thing. I do have one of them on. I don't really care for how this one turned out, to be entirely honest with you. It might be a little hard to see.
Yeah,
but it's like a vampire. It's probably really hard to see, but it's like a vampire girl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't really care for the material that I got this printed on, so I'm gonna be changing that. This was actually printed on a Gildan. The other designs I have are way cooler than this one. In fact, this was like my least favorite. But I'm getting them all printed on Bella Canvas, which is a softer material, and I didn't really like the placement entirely of where this was placed at on the blank itself. So I'm going to move it up and expand it more and just do more with it. But yeah, it's been a lot of trial and error and everything. And yeah, that's currently where I'm at. That's why, honestly, I don't invest myself much in these fields too much anymore, because like I have a lot of things that I want out of my life, and I know that if I don't make the steps to get them, the families and the friends that I've had for years, it's always been living check to check. It's that kind of lifestyle, and I'm actually just now coming out of the esoteric stuff, because there for years it was the only thing I cared about. And there was a point where reality itself didn't matter to me anymore. I was absorbed by the esoterics and stuff of that nature, and I thought that was more important than relative reality, and that's not a healthy mindset at all, because you're working with a bunch of stuff you can't even see. They're fun, it's fun to play with, but you can't lose your grasp of reality, because you won't be beneficial to yourself or anybody else around you if you lose that.
Certainly.
So,
yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, Brock, let me definitely know how your Etsy shop is going and things like that. Just keep me posted. Moving forward. I I'm gonna change my channel name to Energy Apprentice Ken soon because like I've always felt uncomfortable in being a teacher because like I'm bad at explaining things. I'm extremely bad at explaining spirituality and things like that as it is. But also, I don't know. I just didn't want that label. Like like recently I started to realize, well, maybe I'm actually good at asking questions rather than and like getting the best out of people like you. I just barely met you, and like I feel like I got to like really get a lot of great information out of you and stuff. And I feel like that's kind of my role within this spiritual community, and I'm kind of been like, really thinking about what is my role in this. Where do I fit into all this, So, but
You
yeah,
want to be a guide.
yeah, more or less. And like, but monetization is important. That being said, but I'm just not called to be a teacher. I don't feel comfortable being a teacher whatsoever at this point. Well, possibly never. I don't know. I'm just not called for it. I think being an interviewer is my thing. But that being said, I do have to monetize and stuff. And part of the idea I had was definitely like, doing like coming up with some type of like, Etsy shop or something of that sort. I don't know that field at all. Like I'm fairly good with affiliate marketing and things like that, but as far as like creating physical products and things like that, doing like Shopify and all this kind of stuff, or like what do you call it, POD, product on demand or whatever, or I don't know. Like I
Oh,
don't know.
are you talking PO? Yeah, probably drop shipping is probably,
Yeah, drop shipping,
or
PO. I'm
yeah,
not
that
really
kind of stuff.
familiar
Yeah,
with that field. I'm not familiar with that field at all and stuff. So, let me know how it goes and like whether you're having successful and things like whether you're having success in the future and things like that. Because I feel like we really got the bond really well in this. I barely met you an hour ago and stuff, but I feel like I got to really bond with you well and stuff like that. So definitely like yeah, keep me posted on how
yeah.
your
In
things
fact, I
doing. So,
actually,
because I'm
I'll
very
leave you with
interested in like doing something similar in the future. So
I'll leave you with something that might be helpful to anybody that watches this that's interested in telekinetics. Uh, for me, for years, one of the things that I didn't like was using wind to move objects. I didn't like it. I only like to be able to work with an object, and if I was to work with an object, there ain't going to be any physical movement come from my hand. My hand's going to be entirely still, and I'm going to be moving it with my will. Move your hand. Practice waving onto it. The reason for that is because your aura that surrounds the palm can extend itself from continuous trying to whip it at an object. With time, you can start to interact with the object stronger than if you only practiced just keeping your hand still and trying to connect with it. Use physical movement and momentum. It,
that
it
that
will.
that is very good because like what you just said there, because like I actually don't go forward, because if I'm going forward, I'm clearly pushing it with it's debatable, but from a lot of people's point of view, you're pushing it with wind. I
Right,
actually like go backwards
right.
on the object and stuff, and I've definitely had some success with that. So I really like what you said there.
Yeah. Do both. Do static where you're not moving anything at all, and then use wind, because the most important thing is being able to feel your energy connect with the object or some part of you connecting with it. And using momentum can actually help with it's I guess you could say like throwing your aura or whatever you want to call it, kind of like you're throwing out a fishing line or something. You know what I'm saying? Like you can practice that way to get to a point where you don't have to use movement anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it extends your aura to the object itself, and with time you won't have to use movement anymore. You can
Mhm.
do it without movement.
Mhm.
It helps with expanding the aura that or the energy that's projected from your palm chakras or your finger chakras. I don't know why it works, but it works.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no doubt about it. Um, anything else you want to really share? Like that's on your mind right now.
No, I think I'm pretty tapped at this point.
Pretty tapped at this point. Great. Well, you shared a lot of great information, brother. I was thoroughly impressed impressed. I'm really really glad I got to get to know you and stuff like that. I bet there's like hundreds, maybe thousands of guys like you who's like completely underground, completely unknown in this world and stuff. And I feel like that's part of my mission too, like to find guys like you too, like so if you're watching, well, I gotta be that being said, I do have to be careful because I've had some there's some nutty people that I've met that are just like I've had some scary experiences, I should say that. So if you so I mean, like normally I don't really like to like just talk to like just anybody. I'm very careful and stuff. But today I just kind of felt like, well, maybe this Brock guy, I don't know, like I'll just kind of see how it goes, So, but I mean,
Right.
it turned out to be a lot more successful and fun than I was like anticipating and things like that. So I'm really really glad. I got to meet Brock today, and I got to really hear his story and stuff. Would you be interested in a part 2 possibly in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. In fact, like I
Yeah, yeah.
said,
Next time, since this was not planned, like I said, at all. I was just kind of like, I'll just see how this, turns out. Like, but I feel like there's so much you can share. I mean, maybe next time you can even write down like things that you want to share, and I can even like ask it, and maybe we could do it in that
mhm.
form. So.
Yeah, that was the idea. I did have that plan prior to going into this. I was gonna
Oh,
have
you
some
did? Oh
stuff
man, I
wrote
wish
out,
you would have like
but I spent all day shopping, so I didn't have I didn't have the time to do that. But yeah, I know you're about to have that interview with tomorrow with Robert.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
I
let me
hope
know how
so.
that
I
goes.
hope so.
I'm really interested on how that's gonna go. I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it was you or where I heard this from, but one of the things Robert said, which I thought was very true, one of the reasons why people have issues with extrasensory perception and psychic ability is because the amount of stress that we're all under. He's 100% right. That's for sure, without a doubt, one of the reasons why we have issues with these uh, what we consider to be
Yeah.
supernatural abilities. It
Yeah.
has a lot
If
to
you
do with
follow me at
stress.
all, you know how much I stress. So mental breakdowns all the time. So,
Right.
so
But yeah, man, let me know how that conversation with Robert goes. I think it would be
yeah.
awesome if somehow we could get GM involved. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how we're gonna do
I
that.
will. Yeah, yeah. I definitely want to. Kind of like how you mentioned his secretary and things like that. Um, I contacted the secretary years ago and stuff. Unfortunately, I could please correct me. Somebody, I believe I've heard that the secretary, unfortunately, something tragic happened to the person or something like that. I could be wrong about that. If it's false information, I apologize. Um, but nonetheless, still, if the person there's something bad going on to the person, I wish the person well. But nonetheless, I will definitely contact GM Wolf once again. And ever since I contacted him initially in like 2019 when I first started this work and things like that. Since then, he's done a lot more interviews. So I think he'll be more keen to responding to me, especially now that I have a little bit bigger presence than I did in the past as well. So I think that'll hopefully go well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool because like you know, he does this for a living now. He has that thing if you go to his website where you can, pay to go visit him and then stay with him and you can have this, be with him for like a week or whatever. I don't know if he still has it, but he used to have that thing where like you go out like motorcycle riding and all this other stuff with him and stuff like that. So I know
right,
that this is part of what he does to make a living, which is
right.
entirely fine, is completely fine. Uh, if you want to edit this part out, that's fine, because I do have something to say. I do think that he is 110% withholding information. So if you want to
Gotcha.
edit that part out,
Oh no,
I mean,
it's fine.
I believe that right. Like I fully believe that, and not in like a malicious way. But I mean, you got to think if he spent as long as he did over in Tibet learning these things firsthand, he put years and hours and or thousands of hours and effort into learning these crafts, into learning what he knows. It is going to be a little hard to pull it out of him and just for him to give it away willingly. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And a lot of the ideology from over in the East is, you know, it's a closed door policy unless you have a teacher. These things are very hard to come by,
right,
and they don't just give this information away freely.
right,
So it's very like, if you know a guy who knows a guy type situation, you know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
It's they don't go public, so I understand why he withholds. I certainly think he does. Personally, I think he does.
Yeah, 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 maybe, yeah, yeah.
But like, and I don't think, again, I don't think it's malicious. I think it's because he knows the amount of hours and effort that he put in to learn these things. That it's, you know, he just, it's just what he wants to do. And he has gave a lot of really good information. Even if he doesn't give like the keys to like really master telekinetics or psychokinetics, stuff I'd love to see is more videos on how to meditate properly, which we all know are own forms of meditation. Okay. But I'd really like to know the meditations that he learned to be the most beneficial for healing. And we get like in-depth videos on how to do those properly. Since we
Right.
don't have the means to always have a teacher at hand, a lot of us are left alone to do these things ourselves. Uh, I think it would be really awesome if we at least have material like that, because if we can learn that, then we can even be of more benefit to the people around us and even ourselves. I would love to just have videos on healing from him of to some capacity. I think that would be really cool. Some more in
Well,
depth ones.
well, I will tell you this, Brock. If I ever get to interview GM Wolf, I will definitely ask him about healings, and maybe he can disclose some of these insider informations and things like
Right.
that. And since I got to
Yeah.
connect with you, well, maybe I can like share some things if I get to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
connect with him in depth. So, okay. Well, Brock, it looks like we've been going a little past an hour. I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for the connection. Thank you so much. Uh, just sharing all this, valuable information today. And like, you explained a lot of things really well. I was thoroughly impressed. And I had a lot of fun. So let's definitely keep in touch. And let's definitely, if you're up for it, let's definitely do a part 2 in the future. So
Yeah, man. I'm totally down. It was awesome with talking to you and everything. Yeah,
yeah,
just message
awesome.
me and I'll be open anytime. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know when I will publish this on YouTube. It won't be like a year from now. It'll be like possibly in like a few months or something like that. Possibly. I was anticipating to return in May, um, but this Trevor the Seven thing that just came about, and so I might be coming back a lot sooner than I was anticipating. So I don't know when I'll be publishing this, but if I publish this, I'll let you know. And I feel like there's a lot of great nuggets that people can extract from this interview. So yeah, so I think it'll be pretty awesome. So well, thank you once again, Brock, and good luck on your Etsy journey. So
I'll see you, man. It's been a good time. Have a good night,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. Have a good night too. Bye bye.
Yeah, later, bro.